Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're going to talk about Dune Part 1. So let's dive deep into it. Now we have to take some context here. You have to understand Dune is an epic saga. When you look in the books, it's epic. It's not a very childish or black and white. Like Star Wars, in contrast, is very simplistic. It's like, oh, you blow this up or something happens. It's like you're the good guys, the bad guys. There is like, it's not political intrigue there too much. And he did try to, George Lucas did try to make it in prequel series. Let's just say it did not work out well. So Dune, from a source material point of view, it's an epic saga and it's been surviving for 50 years, so genuinely it has enough of oomph there to actually warrant some serious attention. Now all past attempt people have attempted this, like this was a big budget movie, but they failed to bring the wow factor of it. The books have wow factor, but it failed to translate through the screen. So that was the big issue. Given the fact that it actually has more than enough oomph, enough cultural impact that it could become bigger than Star Wars, it did not. The grandeur never came. The movie that was attempted was in 1984, so they could have made a competent movie, but like they bit off more than they can chew, and some design decisions were like, what the hell? And then it was re-attempted in Dune TV series that was in 2000, year 2000. They made mini series in Sci-Fi Channel. Very few people watched it, but it's actually from an adoption point of view, it's better, but it still does not have the whoa. And it is like very cheap early CGI, so that is there. But Denis Villeneuve took that story and put all the effort this story demanded, because Denis Villeneuve fundamentally loves this content. He put his soul into it, and it shows. That's how it became real. And the part 1 laid the foundation for part 2 to become the great. And be mindful, the first book is now complete. Part 1, part 2, they complete the book. I'm not sure whether he's going to make the part 3 or not, but so far it has rocked the industry. Why? Because of the part 1 success. So let's dive deep into it. So first rule, nowadays way too many people are shooting for a schedule rather than shooting for content. Like they are not shooting for like, okay, the story demands it. They are shooting is like, okay, we need to pump out 16 Marvel movies and 17 DC movies and all that. It's like everything is being shot in the sound stage. While some scenario it makes sense, like if you are shooting Expanse, yeah, it makes sense to shoot indoors. But this, it had a lot of outdoor scenes. So they had a very simple rule. Rule number 1, if it's an outdoor scene, shoot in outdoor environment. Done. Now you're like, doesn't that mean like all movies do that? You would be shocked. You would be shocked nowadays how many outdoor scenes are shot in indoors nowadays. Like, whoa. You'd be like, whoa. That's why this was such a big deal. And they did not cheap out here. They did not just went into one location and shot out. Like many of the scenes are shot in different countries, because they knew a desert, for people who are not living in the desert, they think desert is just like a sand. While it is, but you have to understand, deserts have texture, context. Some places have mountainous regions, some places have cracked rocks regions, some places have a different architecture to it, like in terms of rock, flora and fauna. And yes, deserts do have life into them. So to bring that into proper big screen, you have to actually travel there. Some places have to be in Dubai, some places have to be in different part of Iran, some places like literally they have to go there and take shots there. So all of that effort to actually go into different places, to actually place into different system, it did require very hard scheduling. Why? They were doing this in June and in sand. Yeah, if they did that in afternoon, everybody would have gotten heat stroke. So fundamentally, they can only shoot in the early morning period and late evening period. That's the only time temperature was bearable enough, and enough makeups and all that. So it was difficult, but they did. And that's why the film looks so real. It looks like something is happening, because again, something is literally happening in real life. They are not faking it. They're not faking the difficulty what happens when you are walking on the sand. Like sand has a different walk to it, and if you do not have the normal walk, how the heck you gonna have that, like, you know, the not attract sandworm kind of walk if normal walk looks fake? So all of that, and actors were actually working in desert, so they actually had that natural tiredness of it, and it shows in the screen. And people who have watched it the first part in the big movies, they're like, whoa. Is there. And that difficulty of morning and evening did give them some leeway. And here's the deal, how the heck they did the ornithopters. Now here's the deal, that's outdoor, but you need a craft. How would you do that? Well, here's the deal, they went to the tallest mountain in Budapest, if I'm not mistaken, and they just built a cone there, sand reflection cone. That cone was reflecting everything, and then they had the whole prop rotating. 15-ton prop, huge prop. So they had like everything. That's why I said like it looks so real, because it's technically real. It's like it's being captured in camera. It's real for camera's point of view. So fundamentally, it has that touchiness to it where you can just touch it. You, especially people who are watching it the first time in the theaters, they were like, dude, it almost felt like you can just fell into it. And there was another aspect to it. When he was capturing this, he was not capturing as a saga tale. He was capturing more of as a documentary, meaning something is happening and you are seeing it happen. It's not like tell story from a tale's point of view, like a 300 movie. It's a bit different. Here it's like, no, this is happening in real time and you're just seeing some sort of let's say news gathering of it. So he had that sort of essence into it, and because physically was there, all the scenes of Arrakis really has that feel to it. Now, then you must heard this one term used a lot, sand screens. So what are these sand screens? Well, here's the, he was very clear that we cannot use green screen or blue screen. Why is that? Well, green and blue screens are primary color, very easy to capture, and they do have the consequences. When you're shooting on a bright outdoor kind of light scenario, they reflect. And when you are trying to depict Arrakis and that hellscape of bright light, problem is that that much intensity, that much lumens, everything becomes reflective. So the green screen will reflect green back, blue screen will reflect blue back, and that will become ugly as hell in order to try to remove it. If it was a mildly lit scenario, it can be worked, but if you have like a very bright scenario, which majority of the scenes are, that will simply not work. And you may be like, couldn't they use LED volume screen? He did try that, but outcome was no LED volume could get bright enough to match sunlight. Duh. So that was not good enough. However, somebody was very clever and they realized, hey, yellow is invert of blue, meaning you can shoot in special shade of yellow, and benefit of that is you just invert the color channel, you get a mask, you get a negative mask, but again, once you have that mask, you can select it and invert it. So it adds one extra step, but it can be done, and you never have to worry about casting. The light that has been bouncing around looks natural because it's set natural color, natural for that scene, so it does not pop out. It does not look like, oh, it's just composted where we're just composting too many things. No, they got the true color casting. It's like how in Oblivion movie, that was also a very great glass scene. It's like how they make sure the glass is real. Well, put real glass, put a cinema screen, project the real thing, let the real reflection happen. Same thing here. Real reflection of sand is happening because you have a sand screen. So everything was fine there. And to make sure that a whole Arrakis feels like a hellscape, there is a very strong tendency. Whenever you see photographs of desert, there's very strong tendency to contrast blue sky with yellow sand. Now that makes it beautiful, but here's it. Arrakis inherently supposed to be hellscape. It's not supposed to be welcoming, or should not be like, oh, it has its own beauty, no. And that's why even the Chani, when describes the beauty of it, they describes like sand, like in flowing in the base. They're not talking about the whole scene. It should not supposed to. So they made sure very distinctly that sky should never be bright blue. Like, pay attention to it, you will never notice it. That's the whole point. That's how brilliant it is. It's like, no, sky is never inviting blue. It's like always like very dull blue and flat out close to white. So that gives that hostile feeling, that gives a hot, it's like, oh, hot feeling. Like we are subconsciously trained, if we see blue sky, it feels, if it's like very white and it's not cloudy white, like different kind of overexposure white, it feels hot, like from a primal point of view. So that means somebody put some serious effort into getting all the shots. That's why you see, that's why this scene is looking like that. It was some serious effort put into that. So all the shot of Arrakis looks hot. And another aspect of it, during night scene, they had the balls to allow silhouette to happen. Now silhouette generally, people are like, hey, we paid for like actors, actresses face, we need to see it. It's like, no, you do not. People know it. You have good scenes, more than good enough. People can recognize the silhouette. Like if hey, we have Jason Momoa, we need to do. He's supposed to be a weapons master. He's supposed to be stealthy. He's supposed to be like, he's a warrior. He's not supposed to be like, lol, I'm here in bright light. So this was a very conscious choice. You compare this to any other nightly lean set, they try to have lights from all sides. Here's like, no. If you're seeing boom boom event, most likely you are running from a point. So lighting will be always a silhouetted. So you see the silhouette, because again, if your eyes can focus on the explosion that is happening on the background, your eyes will never see the character in foreground. Your eye cannot have focus on everything at the same time. We do have HDR, but problem is it's spot based HDR. So if you pay attention to the explosion is fully exposed for you, not the characters in front. So generally many companies will like, they shoot the mid-gray scene and then they post it backwards. It looks garbage. The worst example would be Black Widow. This time this is in camera. That's why it looks so good. It's like, okay, I see it. That's what the intent is. So that they allowed that CG to like paint in rather than just like looking like a floating mess. Because again, exposure, they followed the exposure rule, which we are very tempted nowadays for some reason, that everybody studies it, but everybody's like, what if we play around with this? Like, it will look fake if you play around with it. So that's why during the daytime and during the nighttime, they put a lot of effort into it, and it feels, it's not something that you actively think about, it feels. You know Arrakis is hot. You may never pay attention to that. Okay, I'm only noticing white skies, that's why it's feeling hot. Oh, I'm never seeing like rich blue skies. That you, again, you can see that in real life, but they are not showing you. That's the whole point. Then we come to the another aspect. This is a big project, and he put a lot of effort into it. For example, sand was a very essence of the movie. So how the heck they get the quicksand effect? Make a real quicksand. Meaning, this scene, how the heck they're shooting it? They have a giant plate, compressed air going through it and going vibrating it. So person is literally sinking. So that's why when you are seeing it in large screen, it looks awesome. It's like, whoa, hand is sinking. It's like how they are getting that. And there are 3 Sarkar soldiers there, and they act, not even act, they literally behave in a situation that's randomly ground beneath them sinked. Why? Because it actually did. They were not acting. They were whoa, 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 whoa. That was there. Like, you can see that. It translates. Why? Because it's physically happening. And here's the, you're like, what about sandworms? OSD. CG elements are awesome as long as you can talk to CGI artist. It's like, hey, bro, this is how it's supposed to look. Scale it up. They're like, I got you, fam. If you show them, like in Top Gun, this is how a fighter jet looks. This is how it flies. Make 4 of them. Awesome. I got you. If you're like, there is nothing, just make it, it will look Hulu. It will look like a late CGI of Marvels. But if you want this sort of like, you zoom in. Now, and you can pay attention to that. They are showing big boom boom, and now they are focusing on your foot. Why? Because again, the camera is there, and you have that already plate set. So it's like, whoa. These subtle things literally was like, whoa. In big screen, we're like, whoa. And fire. When they have fire, there is a scene where Deb Bautista goes Wujang, and it's such a subtle scene, like you may have even forgotten it's there, but it feels like somebody is capturing it from a telescope, like, you know how in some sort of documentary work, sometimes they use long telephoto lens to capture something that is dangerous. It literally had that vibe, and I was like, how they're getting it so real? It's like, I thought like, oh, they must have composited. No, full 1:1 scale. They have actors acting out and capturing through that thermal haze. So thermal haze is organic, and light reflections is organic. Why? Because it's literally happening. So these subtle things, again, even with that explosion scene, they actually had fire. So fire had that casting effect that explosion would have. So now the CG artist is like, I got you, fam. Now they enhanced it, but it blended in the scene. So, and in terms of props, they went all in terms of props. Like even this tiny prop, the thumper, they literally put the effort into it. Like I was watching the part 2. Thankfully, I got to watch part 2 in IMAX, and like this, there is a little bit of ripple. That organic. That was like, whoa, that is too organic. I thought it was CG. Like, but it felt good. It's like, whoa, it's happening. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you have a giant compressed air tank that is doing this. Of course, it will look awesome. So all this effort is what makes the scene feels whoa. It feels grounded because it is grounded. Like, this looks real. Why? Because it is real. Of course, it's not the magical mechanism that is doing. That's a compressed air system, but it's physically there. So that grounding actually translates into theater. Like, why the fire effect looks like fire? Because it's really there. Why sand sinking looks real? It's literally sinking. So all of these translated. Like, how the heck they got the ornithopter's dust effect to work properly? They had an actual helicopter moving around that they captured as a complete plate, gave the plate to CGI artists, like, bro, remove the helicopter, put the ornithopter. And they're like, it's add a bit more dust. That's far more easier than like, okay, this is a blank plate, go YOLO on it. It's like, yeah, it will look Hulu. And again, Top Gun also learned this the hard way. It's the Dark Star, that scene where it looks like, whoa, how the heck they got it? There was an actual fighter jet that did that. It's much easier to paint out something rather than paint a swirling air effect. You can't do that. Same with here also. Ornithopter could not do that. Real helicopter was like, I got you, fam. All of this. Another aspect that all of the camera behind the scene, I've linked some videos down below. You will learn camera motions are way too subdued. Like they're not tempting to like go Zack Snyder is like, whoa. Camera lenses are going, whoa. Why? That was the essence of it. It was a saga that is happening according to a story, and you are capturing it. It's not like a retelling of a story. So camera movement had to be subsumed. Like these are subtle things, but again, you must have noticed that in around let's say 2010, we got a brain damage known as shaky cam. Everything started to become shaky cam, and we had like 10,000 cut. And you're like, dude, I get it. One movie did it well, does not mean every scene has to have it. Same here. It's like they could have used fancy camera jigs, and sometimes like Gentleman's Club. So there are some movies that I've seen where they put too much camera movement and it's hard to track. And they're like, no, no, it's real. I get it's real, but does not mean it's good. Same as shaky cam. It's like just because it's shaking camera, it's a real, it's happening in real life does not mean it looks good. So that subdued nature allowed the beauty of the scene to be absorbed properly. And that's why, like this sand scene, you'll be like, whoa. Because they're like, okay, let's just have the camera, let's just absorb the scene. And that's why even in the part 2 there were way too many scenes where they let the camera relax, enjoy the scene. They're like, and it makes sense. So all this effort pays off. That's why Dune 1 became such a success that it greenlit Dune 2. So again, rule number 1 of CG: garbage in equals garbage out. Give them good stuff in, then they can make awesome stuff out. Give hulululu in, jingalala would be output. You do not want that. So this was my presentation on Dune Part 1. Hopefully you guys have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.